In this video, I will recreate the project that we have for Bootstrap class. The project is to create Instagram feed with the column view and a grid view, single page, using Bootstrap for that. So the first thing that we're going to do in this page, so it's an empty page, I will install Bootstrap in this page. So the first thing we do, we go to the Bootstrap documentation, here the introduction, the quick start, we have the CSS code that we copy, and we paste in the head of the page, and we also have the JavaScript. So we copy that JavaScript, and we paste at the end of the body. And now our page has Bootstrap. Now, next up is to create the design. The design has a regular navbar with some options, and it has a menu with grid view and column view, and then it has a column view. Depending on the page, the column view will have individual posts, and then the grid view will just have a grid of posts. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is to create the navbar. Then we're going to have a menu with two options, grid and column, and then we're going to have the content. So for the content, we can have the grid or column views. Okay. Now, another dependency of this project is Font Awesome. For Font Awesome, we can install directly for the icons. I will add that in a second, so let's do that. So Font Awesome, you remember you have to register and create a kit. Once you create a kit, it will be a free kit. You have the setup instructions. So essentially, you have to copy this JavaScript code on the header of your page, and that's it. We already have Font Awesome installed. If you want to test it, you can go to the kit and you can find some icons. Let's say we want the grid icon, and remember, always use the free icons. I think with this one is something that we can use. Let's paste it on the page, and if everything is correct, you should see the grid icon there. That means that we have Font Awesome installed correctly in our page. So let's start with the navbar. The navbar that we want to use is pretty simple. It has a brand on the left, and then it has a couple of menus or options on the right. It has a button and a drop down. So let's find that component. So for the component, we do navbar, and here it is. This is an option. It has a lot of options here, so I will probably strip most of these elements, and I will keep the ones that I want. Or maybe we can find a better alternative. Let's see if we can find another one. Okay, I think this is a good option. Okay, so this one is pretty much close to what I want. I want something, a brand on the left and some options on the right. So I guess this is the code that I want. What I'm going to do is copy the whole code and paste it directly in my page. And now I have my page is working. Now I need this to be okay, like this. So the brand will be, let's call it pictogram. Now I don't need these options, so for now I will just delete all these options. We will learn how to use this later. And we need some options on the right. Okay, so we're going to delete all this. Okay, now I need a button to post. Remember, for the button, you will go to the documentation, button. This is how buttons are created. I would need this success button, so I can copy that one if I want. But I know the classes are btn, btn success. So btn, btn dash success. And here's my button. Right? Now, the other thing that I need in this page is a drop-down with some options. Let's find the drop-down component. Okay, drop-downs. Here's an example of a drop-down. Actually, this is a good one. Let's take this one. And here's a drop-down. Now, by default, as you can see, the navbar will space all elements inside. That's why we have the brown on the left, we have the post in the center, and then we have the drop down on the extreme right. So what we're going to do here is to group or wrap the button and the post. The post button and the drop down, I'm going to wrap them. And to make it look in a row, I can use flex. Right, so dflex is the class, is the Bootstrap class that allows me to convert any div tag to a flex container. By default, flex containers are rows, so as soon as I put this class, then it will look like this. But of course I need to give them some space between them, so let's find the gap. So here's the gap, and we can use gap and a number. Okay, let's do gap 3. There you go. Now the options for now going to be settings. I think we have another option. I don't remember the options right now, but you can customize it. The only thing I remember is that this button, instead of a text, was a gear icon. So let's find the gear icon and use it. Gear. Here's the gear icon. And we can change this for a gear icon. And here is or drop down. Have the post button and the drop down. Okay, now that will be the navbar. Let's move on to the middle section, the one that has the buttons, the grid. Now for that, we're going to use a tab component. So tabs is a component that allows me to create these type of options, right? So let's find the option for a tab. Here, right? Because we want a grid view and a column view. So this is similar to what we want. And notice that we have here the UL section for the links, and then a div section for the content. And every tab will have a list item, and every time at the same time we'll have a div. Okay, So let's copy this code because this is pretty similar to what we need, and let's paste it here. So now we have all that content. So the first one is going to be the grid, and the second is going to be the column. We can delete the third one because we don't need it. Right? Now instead of a grid and a column, we want to use the grid icon. So instead of grid, we're going to use the icon. And instead of a column, we're going to use a square. This square. Okay? Now, all this content, remember, we are putting all this content straight into the body. But if we want to correctly lay out this page, we will need to use a container. And inside that container, we will have to use a row. And inside that row, we will have to use a column. Now this column, because it's the column for the menu, will have 12 slots. And then we can copy and move this option here. And then we can center this text, center. Oh, actually, that doesn't do the trick, so we will find how to align it later. Now that will be that option, and now we need to create another row. So this is the first row. Let's create another row. For the content. Now for the content, we have this tab content. So let's give it also 12 slots, and then we're gonna put our content inside. Now we don't need this last one because that was the one that we deleted. We only need these two. And we're going to paste it here. Now this will be in the grid view, and this will be the column view. And notice that already in our page, the menu is working, right? We have the grid view when we select grid view, and we have column view when we select column view. Okay, so we still need to, 1, center this, and 2, implement this grid view and implement this column view, and probably give them some spacing between them. So for spacing, we can use some padding, or we can use some gap in the container. So the container, let's see if the gap works. Actually, we need to specify the direction of that. Direction, flex column. And then we can implement the gap. So now we have a gap between this and this. Now we also need a padding or a margin top, so we can separate this container from the navbar, right? There you go. Okay. Now next step is to center this menu and implement the grid view and the column view. Let's start by centering this menu on the top, right? So this content is this. So it's a UL. So it's an unordered list with 2 li elements, and each one of them has an icon from Font Awesome. Now, to center this, we're going to come here to the column, and we're going to implement first the class dFlex. So now our column becomes a flexbox, and there is a class to center the elements in the column. So we're going to use justify content center. And now our options are center. Cool. Now let's implement the grid view. The grid view is just a set of images, right? So inside the grid view, we're going to implement a row, and inside that row, we're going to implement columns of size 4. That means that I can have 4 images at the same time in the row. Now, as soon as I start adding more, then it will become a grid. Let's add one more. There you go. Now let's find an image that we can use. An image. Let's see if we have an image here. We don't. So let's try to find an image.